Hey, Happy New Year. I just wanted to take a moment and tell you a little about my new book, Belonging: How Social Connection Can Heal, Empower, and Educate Kids. I know in this busy world now, it's a commitment to read a book. And so I wanted to try to make it as easy as possible before you and give you a quick summary of what I was trying to accomplish with the book and give you a sense of whether it might be worth your time. One of the main goals of the book for me was to make a case for the value of community. And so, in that sense, I really tried to present a wealth of research. So, you guys, as educators or community members, have the resources to help you go back to your communities and your schools and make a case for the value of community and making a case for that in our curriculum and our time, because a lot of times some of the soft side of education and community gets pushed off to the side. So that was a main focus. Um, the book starts out with this idea of sharing this idea that belonging is a basic need, that it is wired into our DNA. It's a fundamental driver of our mental health and our physical health. So the first early on, I wanted to try to make a comprehensive case, talking about the value of trust, talking about how connections, how trust drives learning, how social connections with the teachers, with peers, impacts student well-being, impacts their ability to learn. And a real quick overview, just an example. I like to think of belonging as a basic need, much like hunger and thirst. And so, just like hunger, you see here, when we don't have our belonging needs met, we are in that survival brain. We are we think very differently than when we feel we are a valued and needed member of a community. And so that's what you see here is we have these two brains. You have the survival brain when we don't feel safe and we don't feel connected, when we feel rejected and alone, because that is wired into our DNA as a fundamental threat to our survival. And then we have the creative brain where we feel the valued member of the community. So in the classroom, what have you, when we don't have that sense of belonging and community, here's what we see a lot. You see a lot of avoidant behavior, kids not wanting to make mistakes, not wanting to look dumb. Or maybe the other thing you see is some escape behavior, kids wanting to get out. So again, so this is sort of that unsafe brain. We don't feel safe, we don't feel threatened, or we feel threatened whenever we are not a valued part of a community. In contrast, the real much of the real goal of school is helping kids develop their executive functioning skills. You see the 21st century skills of creativity, critical thinking, self-control, curiosity. These are all higher order thinking skills. And so the big question we have is this idea, how do we get past the amygdala so we can access that higher order thinking? I like to use the idea of in terms of the brain, in terms of brain wiring, survival trumps curiosity. So the amygdala is not going to allow us to use those executive functioning skills until we feel safe and our brain is able to relax. So that's where a lot of the early part of the book focuses on the value of belonging in our thinking and well-being. The second part of the book, this chapter two, really shifts in a few chapters, detailing the decline of community, the rise of economic inequality. Robert Putnam describes his work, Harvard professor describes a 50-year decline in community and a shift in norms and values in America, away from community and cooperation and towards individualism and competition. And so that decline of community, one, it's been going on for half a century, and it really spiked even further or dropped even further during times of COVID. And you know, you see now it's becoming very obvious. Brene Brown describes it as a disconnection, epidemic of disconnection. Uh, and you see here some of the effects of that. Similarly, again, Belonging is this basic need. The second premise of the book is for more and more kids, they are not getting that basic need met. And so these are going to be some of the effects we see. The chapters go into a lot of us versus them thinking, group thinking, some of the dangers of that, um, the mental health stigmas a lot of students experience, racism, sexism. What are the psychological experiences of those feelings of alienation that more and more students are feeling all the time? So that's really detailing one, the problem of a lot of kids are not getting this basic belonging need met, and then the impact that it's having. From there, really try to shift the conversation into what are some solutions. Um, and sharing a lot of research around how do we build community. And for me, a lot of that centered around this idea of the relationship equation. And this is based on work from some researchers at Princeton and Harvard. And what they found was doing their research, whenever we meet somebody new, we are evaluating that person up first and foremost on warmth. Are these people nice? Are these somebody I want to be around? And then competence. Do these people know what they're talking about? And so, if we want to be memorable teachers, we want to be that transformative person in students' life, community leaders, it's important we develop the skills to communicate warmth and also competence, that we know what we're talking about, that we see the value in students, and we see their potential. So, for me, a lot of these skills of being an effective teacher and communicator really begin a lot with this relationship equation idea. Based on this idea, you see the same things when you start to say, what are the most effective skills for teachers when we're teaching marginalized students, students with disabilities? How do we help them transcend and overcome prejudice, discrimination, inequality? And you see the same idea that those highly effective teachers have the same two traits. They are community builders, they are communicate belonging. And the second thing is demanders, high expectation. So they communicate a belief in their students. So when we start trying to figure out how do we become better at building community, we say first, well, we need to communicate warmth and competence. We do that with our students by showing that warmth and building community and high expectations. Then the next skill we have is these warm, demanding teachers. What they're able to do is they shape how students answer these basic fundamental questions of motivation. And so the idea here is whenever we are presented with a difficult challenge, our brain is going to ask these three questions. And how we answer some version of these questions is going to shape the effort and persistence and curiosity we show in trying to solve that problem. First thing, are people going to laugh at me if I screw up? Are people going to judge me if I make a mistake? So do I belong? Am I safe? If I don't feel safe, if I don't feel like this is a community I can take chances and make mistakes, I'm not going to do it. And that's what we see in a lot of our students. The next thing, a lot of students, we really have a lot of growing issue around this helplessness, lack of agency. A lot of students feel like they can't do anything to make their life better, whether it's due to a mental illness, inequality, the pressures of social media. And a lot of kids today lack agency. So a lot of them, when they're posed with a challenge, they're very quick to give up. And then finally, we're not going to work hard and do challenging things, take risks, if it's not something that's important to us. So those warm, demanding teachers help students feel like they belong, that their hard work will pay off, and that doing this difficult task is important to their life. The acronym I like to use is BAM. So if we want kids to be challenging, persistent, growth-minded students, we need to make sure they feel like they belong. We need to make sure they feel like they have agency and they have a sense of meaning and purpose to the task they're engaged in. So we take the warm, demanding teaching skill and we want to use that skill to send messages of BAM, belonging, agency, and meaning. And then finally, the key idea in the book is that when students are in this growth-minded sense of belonging, they have answered those questions about BAM, they're engaged, they're curious. This is when teaching is fun. You have kids taking chances, asking questions, making mistakes, trying, getting up, doing it again. Um, when you don't have that, when kids answer some of those questions no, the opposite of engagement is off-task behavior. So you have a lot more classroom management. When you don't have engagement, that's when teaching is really, it can be exhausting, or it can be the most rewarding profession out there, depending on engagement. And you see the value. This is from a 2014 survey of teachers, and it's long been known. Learning is a participation sport, and engaging in those learning behaviors of asking questions, making mistakes, and so forth is critical to that achievement that we're looking for. And so the idea of this book is kids are not going to engage, make mistakes, engage in those learning behaviors until the first question we help them answer is, do I belong here? Because we're not going to take that risk of social rejection and inclusion and isolation if we don't feel like we're safe. Okay. So that's my hope for the book. It was a great pleasure to write it. I hope it is a useful conversation tool for you and your community. And feel free to reach out to me on Twitter with questions or comments, Dr. Dusty BX at Twitter, or thebookonbelonging.com. All the best, and I hope it's a great resource for you and your community.